To make your writing more accessible, avoid relying on visual cues for important information. A visual cue is anything that isn't text, such as colors, patterns, images, font styling, or directional words, for example, top right corner. Relying only on visual cues excludes anyone who cannot see that cue, such as those who are colorblind or visually impaired. Always use text or alt text along with visual cues to make your content as inclusive as possible. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you're looking online for a recipe for a Greek salad. You find a recipe with this ingredients list. The recipe website says that the ingredients listed in red are optional. Pause the video to read this recipe and reflect. What's the problem with this approach? One problem is that the ingredients list relies only on color, red or green, to communicate important information. Relying only on color excludes anyone who is colorblind or visually impaired. You might also notice that optional ingredients are scattered at random throughout the list, and there are a number of abbreviations. Let's improve this recipe. What does this version do better? This recipe is better because it uses the word optional in addition to color. The list is still clear even after removing color and other visual indicators. Another improvement is that optional ingredients are grouped together, making the list easier to scan visually. Finally, abbreviations are spelled out, like ounces instead of OZ and teaspoon instead of TSP. Using complete words instead of abbreviations makes the list better for screen readers and also for people who are new to cooking. Can you think of examples in your day-to-day work where visual cues might show up? One common example is spreadsheets. Project tracking spreadsheets often use colors to indicate status, such as green for done, yellow for in progress, and red for at risk. There's nothing wrong with including colors, but if color is the only status indicator, you exclude people who are colorblind or visually impaired. Make sure to include words along with colors. Another example in your work could be user interfaces that rely heavily on color to communicate information. For example, an error might be indicated just by red coloring rather than with text. Here's an example of an error screen where someone forgot to enter their password. Can you think of a way to make this design more accessible? Pause the video here and reflect. One problem with this design is that it uses only color to communicate important information. The design doesn't use other visual or content cues. It would be more accessible to include text along with color. Also, yellow may not be the best color choice. Yellow is typically used as a warning rather than to indicate a blocker. Red is a better color to indicate an issue where the person can't move forward to the next step. Let's look at another example. In this example, the person typed the letter O instead of 0. What does this screen do better than the previous example? Pause the video here and reflect. This design is more accessible than our last example because it uses color, iconography, and text to communicate the issue. But we could still make an improvement here. The error should also provide the correct format of the input so the user knows exactly what to do. Here's a bonus tip for UX writers. When an engineer codes components, they may assign a role to the component. This particular component could be assigned the role of alert, which means that a screen reader user would hear valid 5 or 9-digit code required, alert. You can work with your engineers to make sure the right roles are assigned to the right components. In summary, remember that relying heavily on visual cues excludes anyone who is colorblind or visually impaired. Don't rely exclusively on visual elements like colors, patterns, images, font styling, or directional words, for example, top right corner. Always use text or alt text in addition to visual elements to communicate important information.
Visit goo.gle/accessible-content to learn more about this and other accessibility writing tips.